Welcome to Leading to Prosperity podcast series. We will be talking to some of the leading entrepreneurs and industry leaders who are actively working with small and medium enterprise as well as corporates, leading them to their prosperity. Our guest is Mr. Ross Wilson, CEO of Growing Organizations, New Zealand. Ross has 30 years of experience as a company director, business leader, award-winning learning and strategy facilitator, and business performance improvement advisor in wide range of industries throughout New Zealand. Having engaged in over 40 countries, he adds valuable intercultural and global perspective to all the work. He works with organizations to strengthen leadership networks, align practices with values and purpose, and create high performing teams. He will be sharing his experiences with us today. If you have any questions or thoughts, please write to us and let us know what you think about the podcast. Thank you. I would welcome Ross.
Thank you. It's my pleasure, Deepak.
Thanks a lot, Ross. To start with, I just wanted to understand what you're doing and why you're doing and what is your purpose.
Well, it's a great question to kick off. In 2002, I launched this company called Growing Organizations. And we really are focused on one thing, and that is the transformation of Kiwi workplaces. In fact, we worked all around the world, but our focus today is on the New Zealand workplace. I believe that New Zealand workplaces are in need of a makeover. We've inherited a legacy which has made work very difficult for people and made our results very mediocre, in my opinion. And what it takes to improve them is, in fact, a change in the workplace. So, you know, as a business, as a team, we're focused on transforming Kiwi workplaces just one at a time.
It's a great thing, Ross, when you say changing the workplaces or helping the workplaces. Do you think it's only the growing organizations that can do it, or how are you different from what other people are doing in the marketplace?
Well, I know that we can do it and we do it, but we're not the only ones. But I think there's a relatively small number, a few of the many who are involved in doing something about workplaces. The majority, of course, in our industry are very focused on training. And I was involved with training for many, many years around the world. But we've actually got out of that space in recent years because recent science has shown us that for long-term sustainable change, training is not the answer. So we've shifted our focus to work on the culture and the leadership aspects of the workplace. And we're finding that the results now are not only substantial and verifiable, but also long-term and sustainable. So we made that shift a few years ago, and we're finding that actually the difference we're making now in Kiwi workplaces is quite substantial. It's huge.
Yeah, you mentioned that the Kiwi workplaces need to change or transform from what they are doing today to the next level. What do you think is the benefit by changing? The thing is, we have been doing this for ages now. So what will happen if I don't change, and where does we lead, and how do we compare ourselves with the different part of the world?
Well, what will happen if we don't change is that life will go on and as we know it. And I think one of the biggest obstacles to New Zealand business success is this contentment with the status quo. We think we're good, and we accept that, and we don't want to be better. And I believe when we compare ourselves against different nations, different cultures, and different workplaces around the world, we can do a whole lot better. I'm convinced of it. So what difference does it make? It has many different benefits, Deepak. Not only is it good for our health and the well-being of everybody, but it's also good for business. Results are better. There's no question about that. We can achieve a lot more. I think there are all sorts of tangible benefits like reductions in workplace accidents, increase in productivity, certainly increases in profitability, but also absenteeism, sabotage, theft, or a number of different indicators either go up the way we want them to, or they go down the way we want them to, when we address this core issue of the health of the workplace.
Yeah, so the benefits are various, and it's not only the financial benefits, it's the non-tangible benefits what company will get. That is more of loyalty, which is missing the current workforce, or we can claim in such a way. But then that raises an interesting point, Ross. From the millennial, what we see is how do we have them engaged in the organization? Because the thing is, like, we are talking about sustaining, and in the other way, we are looking at the workforce which have been there with us for ages. But then there is a new workforce coming into the market, that is millennial workforce. How do we manage them in the current scenario, and how does your work help the organizations in making that possible?
Well, as you know, Deepak, I'm pretty pragmatic and I tend to cut to the chase. I think at the end of the day, we just have to remember what we were like when we were that age. Human beings haven't changed that much. Our basic needs, our interests are the same. And then we factor in the changes in the environment that we've experienced in the last 30 years, like technology, for example. And clearly that makes a difference in the world in which we live, not only for the so-called millennial, but for all of us. And so what we have is 20s and 30-year-olds who are just like us when we were that age, but they live in a world which is slightly different, in many ways significantly different. So I think if we remember that, most of it becomes common sense. Millennials, as we call them, and even the term I don't like, I think it's pejorative. I think it segregates them and makes them an object of study. And I don't like that, and they don't like it actually. The ones I've spoken to, they object to being considered like lab rats. We have this demographic we call millennials, and they don't like it. But we'll use it for now, for convenience. But I think they want love and attention just the same as we did. And I think in our generation, we've got very lazy at delivering that. I think we rely on things like social platforms to create this kind of good feeling. And we expect that the very platforms and the technology which the younger generation had created or helped us to create, we then turn around and expect those things to provide for their social needs. And I think that's a complete misunderstanding. Millennials today, they need the kind of attention and respect. They need to be listened to, and just like we did. They have ideas. They can take us forward. There's no question. I think there's huge value in our 20s and 30-somethings. And if we neglect them or ignore them, we will pay a big price. And they will too, So, let's just treat them as people. Let's treat them as the 20s and 30-somethings that we used to be, and honour them and listen to them. That's how to manage millennials, in my view.
That's an amazing perspective, Ross. It's something very important to respect a person from what he is and where he is coming from. And
fundamentally, yeah.
And our culture, basically the culture in New Zealand as a Kiwi culture, what we have is respecting each one of them for what he is and how he is. It's an amazing thought process. I think those type of issues should not be there within our workforce or within the country like us, right?
I think we've got a good start in our Kiwi culture. There are many aspects of our Kiwi culture that serve us well in this area, but we're a long way short. I don't think we're as respectful of one another as we should be. I don't think we acknowledge one another like we should. I don't think we treat people with dignity as we should. We don't give people autonomy as we should. I think that there's far too much self-interest, even in our culture. We pride ourselves on aspects of our Kiwi culture being laid back, being egalitarian, and so on. And there's some truth in that, and so we should. But we're a long way short, and I would like to see that change.
Yeah, when you're talking about that change and this one, is that your measure for success? How is that what you measure as your success?
Yes, it is. When we see the changes taking place in our clients' workplaces, we get a buzz. It's what we're here for. It's what we're aiming at, and when we see it happen, which we do regularly, it's thrilling. It's really exciting. and we are very, very satisfied. Yeah.
Oh, that's great, Ross. That's a very key message for all of us, and especially in the marketplace when we are trying to talk to our fellow entrepreneurs or
Yes.
the leadership thought leaders. That is very key for us to understand, rather than running behind making things possible for the numbers. We also have to focus on our people and our culture, how to make them better and utilize them better for the betterment of the country and leading to prosperity. Yeah, with that, it's really interesting discussion, Ross, like what always we discuss. So that leads me to the next question. How do you feel fulfilled when we use success is different and fulfilled is different? So how do you feel fulfilled in these areas when you are in the phase of change and making things possible for the entrepreneurs? Today, entrepreneurs, how do you think our entrepreneurs are motivated enough, or the senior leadership, thought leadership is motivated enough to help us, to help them or help themselves to get into the areas where they need to understand and make things possible for themselves?
Yes, success and fulfillment are different things. Success is simply achieving what you aim for. And so when we achieve our results, our goals, and help the clients to achieve their objectives, we enjoy the success, no question. But the fulfillment comes from the fulfillment of our, and the satisfaction, I should say, comes from the fulfillment of our purpose. Now, we could be off doing a whole lot of other things as a business and as a team, but this is the one thing that we do. And so when we do it, and we do it successfully, we feel intensely fulfilled, and it's very gratifying. Now, entrepreneurs are motivated just the same as anybody else. They all want to make a difference. They're actually, in my experience, most of the entrepreneurs I deal with are seeking the very things that we're trying to promote in the workplace. They want to be recognized. They want to be respected. They want to be meaningful and significant. They want to achieve things. They want to make life better for society and for the people around them. Ultimately, you boil it all down, they want to earn a living and take care of their loved ones, just like everybody else. Even a person who's on wages or salary has that basic drive and motivation. An entrepreneur is no different. They're not from another planet. They're people just like us, but they're also very different from us. A true entrepreneur is actually very hard to measure. But when I sit with a person, and there's always food involved, because breaking bread together is very important for human communication and for relationship. And so we always have a coffee or a lunch or something together. And after talking to a person for an hour or so, I can tell you whether or not they are an entrepreneur, not just trying to be. And there's a lot of people who try to be entrepreneurial. It's a bit of a buzzword. It's the thing, a bit of a fad. People want to be entrepreneurs. But actually, it's not all it's cracked up to be. Those of you who want to be an entrepreneur, take it from me. It's a long, hard road. But I can tell the ones who are genuine entrepreneurs, and they vibrate differently to everybody else. There's something about them. Their focus is different. Their energy is different. Their inspiration comes from a different place. And their motivation, though, is to make a difference, to be something unique. Yes, generally they like praise. They're not all extroverts, though. Quite a few of the world's best, most effective entrepreneurs are quite introverted, but deep down they still like that appreciation. So, yeah, to your question, what motivates an entrepreneur? They're looking to do something worthwhile. They want to do something meaningful. They want to change people's lives for the better. And that term social good comes to my mind. And that's what they're after. I don't know if that answers your question.
Yes, that's something which, because this answer leads to my next question, because one or the other day we would have started as corporate employee, and we have been in the corporates for ages, or we have seen through the corporates. So what happens is, from there we move on to be an entrepreneur at some point in time, and very few we have the entrepreneur who has born from the day one. So I was trying to understand, to the entrepreneur's perspective, like how does corporate world and the entrepreneur world are too different or too similar. So how does it come to us as a people, or the people, those who are going to the market, talking to the marketplace? So how does it impact? Because you've been in the corporate world for many, many years and looked into that, and also after that being an entrepreneur as well as a person who is helping the entrepreneurs. So how do you think it is two different parts of life, or it's the same?
I think there are sufficient differences between the two for us to refer to them as separate worlds, but there's more in common than there is in difference. And the principles are the same. The exact same principles that big corporate applies, and which I went and studied for an MBA to learn about all those things, are exactly the same in the small business. The principles don't change, but the application of it is different. And it's important for the entrepreneur, for the startup, for the small business owner, manager, to recognize that everything that the big corporate does to succeed, he or she should do the same, but with a very specific application to their context. Context is everything. And so if you're talking to a frontier, they've got a context. If you're talking to a meat processing company, they have a context. If you're talking to the corner dairy, that person has a context. The little engineering shop down the road that will fix your broken wheelbarrow, they have a context. And the principle has to meet the context, and then the application comes out of that. So that's how I try to help the small business owner as well as the corporate. So the conversations can be quite different, but just remember the principles are the same.
Oh, that's an amazing way of putting things together, as there is no differentiation between, because both of them are working for a purpose.
Well, the differentiator is the context.
Yes, thank you, Ross. Now I'm moving on to the next level of challenges, what we are looking at in the marketplace.
Mm-hmm.
So now it is like, we are talking about automation and robotics coming into the marketplace, as well as the workforce and all that stuff. We see that in Olympics, they want to use driverless cars and robots to take the luggage into the room as a bellboy or whatever it is. So how do you think that would impact your business or the businesses New Zealand perspective?
I think there's a lot of people running scared of AI. I'm not. I think AI is a wonderful thing. We've had AI actually for thousands of years. We just didn't put it in a box in a machine. But the whole concept of AI being the ability to learn, I think it's a wonderful thing. It's a human trait. It's a trait common to all mammals. And the fact that we just now put it in a box with a few diodes and you put in circuit boards and so on, that's a new thing, of course. But AI has always been a good thing. And it's a tool to use. And, at some point or other, we went from serving meals at home to going out and eating. And maybe, I'm guessing, but maybe the first restaurants were just smorgasbord, buffet meals, where you had to help yourself. And then somebody thought, oh, well, why don't you sit at the table and we'll bring the meal to you? So we have a robot called a waiter who picks up the meal from the kitchen and delivers it to your table. And that waiter or waitress does it with a bit of flourish, with a smile, with a bit of added value, and so on. And we think it's wonderful. Well, maybe one day that will be a robot delivering the meal to the table. So what's the difference, really? I think it's the fear-mongering that's going on. I think there are people who, for personal interests, are trying to make us scared, on one hand. They're trying to oppose AI, so they make us scared. And they send out messages that promote this fear of AI. I'm not afraid of it. I just filter out all that rubbish. There's also those that are promoting it as the new thing, the best thing. It's going to take over the world. It's going to be wonderful for us. We can all sit back and enjoy a life of leisure as we have all these robots running around and serving us. I think they're overstating it because they're trying to make money out of it. No question. So I wouldn't be afraid of AI. I think AI in my industry has made a significant difference, a positive difference. We've learned a lot in the last 10 years about, in the online learning space, for example, how good it is, how bad it is. And it's good at some things, it's terrible at other things. And a wise person learns, how to use it, because all it is a tool. So for replicating consistent information across an audience of people, policy and procedure, for example. It's wonderful. Put it online. Hugely cost benefit, huge cost benefit, and it's very effective. Teach replicatable skills, routine skills. It's very good for that. But it doesn't teach you non-routine. It doesn't teach you how to use initiative, how to interpret circumstances, how to understand the person you're talking to and respond to that person. It's no good for teaching selling skills, for example, in my opinion. It's good at teaching a sales process, but it's no good at teaching salespeople how to relate to other humans. So it has its place. It's very valuable, but we have to learn how to use it, just like any other tool. It's not worrying me in my industry, although we have changed. You have to adapt. When automation comes, AI, for example, comes, you have to adapt. And so we no longer do that routine, repetitive process type training. It's gone. Do it online. You can do it for a tenth of the cost of hiring me to come and do that. And you can do it better because you can do it consistently, because everybody gets the same message, same training. So we don't do training anymore. But AI, as yet, can't transform your work culture, and it can't develop leadership. It can teach people how to do things that leaders do, but it doesn't make leaders out of us. And I don't think that, as yet anyway, AI in the near future is going to be able to do that sort of thing. So my job's pretty secure, I think, although it is changing all the time, and we have to consistently adapt to our environment. So, AI is a good thing, and I welcome it, but we need to learn how to use it.
Yeah, that's an amazing point, Ross, because the thing is, AI, if we use it as a tool and use it for the benefit of this one, it's great, rather than getting scared by it or running away from the change, like the change is constant. Or if we say that if we continue to do what we do, we'll continue to be where we are. So that's where it is.
That's right.
All right.
There's also a variant of that about insanity.
Cool, Ross. We are getting closer to some of the key things which we need to look into. The thing is, like, how do we look? Because the thing is, earlier when we make business strategy, it used to be there 5 years, 10 years or something like that. And now, what do you think business strategy is, and how do we, for next 3 years, how should we build our strategy so that we know how to manage our business, or how to ensure that we are going in the right direction of our business?
I think this is one of the several key misunderstandings that affects senior managers and businesses all over the world. It's a confusion between strategy and a strategic plan. We have to remember that the term strategic plan has a noun and an adjective. The noun is the plan. The adjective is strategic. So what we have is a plan which is strategic. So what is the strategy? Because it's different. Strategy is simply your purpose or your calling, plus the driving values that move you every day in terms of your behavior, and the compelling vision that draws you towards something. And that's in Māori, it's part of the concept of kaupapa, and that is strategy. So purpose or calling, your values, and the compelling vision. That's strategy. So what do you do with that? Well, then you develop a plan of how you're going to realize that, or promote that, or extend that across a society or a culture or an industry or something like that. And that's just a planning process. It's pretty simple, really. You can use a number of different techniques. I have the ones I use. Our team uses a set of very useful, very effective tools for doing the planning process. But you've got to define the strategy first, and that's that, the purpose, the vision, and the values. Get them sorted, the planning becomes quite simple and routine. If at the end of the day the plan isn't exciting, motivating to all those involved, well, then there's something wrong with the strategy, not necessarily the plan.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's a good point, Ross, because the thing is, we started with the purpose. What is the purpose of the business? And then we went on to see a lot of variations of the business. Then when we come back to the business plan or a business strategy, it goes back to the, that's an interesting way of putting things. Like strategic plan is a noun verb, noun and an adjective. That's a really interesting way of putting things. So that's leading to our very last few topics, which we usually talk about, is like, what is the type of world you want to live in?
Cool. What a question, Deepak. How long have you got?
You have 5 minutes now.
Oh, gosh. All right, I'll use it sparingly. What kind of a world? I believe a world is coming where we are all considered equal in value, not in contribution, because the diversity of humanity is a wonderful thing. So contribution is dependent upon the individual, but value must be universal. And I believe in a world where we're all valued equally and honoured equally, respected, appreciated. I believe in a world, and I want to see a world where we're free, genuinely free to do the right thing. And I believe that we need a world which takes care of those who can't take care of themselves. We cannot leave them behind. We must take those people forward, whether they're in our extended family or whether they're strangers. I believe we're in a world where we see those people, we recognize them, and we carry them forward with us. And those who can learn to walk again, we need to help them to learn to walk. Those who have the capability of building a business, we need to help them to do so. Those who have the capability of developing an enterprise that's going to make a difference in the world, let's enable them and empower them. That's the kind of world I want. I don't get caught up too much in the whole gender argument, because at the end of the day, what we're talking about is in fact men and women together as absolute equal value, each doing our part, complementing each other, working together, cooperating, collaborating. That's the kind of world I want, Deepak. And I think it's coming. I think it's coming.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Ross. I think that is the core values which we have learned and grew up with our basic culture.
Some of us did.
Yeah. That's really a good thing. The other one which I wanted to check is like, do you have a message for the people like me or the entrepreneurs out there, how to go about doing things?
Yeah, this is also a challenging question, and I had to stop and think about this one. In particular for entrepreneurs, I think you just have to accept the personal cost and don't complain. It goes with the territory. If it's too hot in the kitchen, get out. Go and sit in the living room. So I think entrepreneurs, and generally, a genuine entrepreneur, I'm telling them what they already know. It's the people who want to be an entrepreneur, who don't have it in them, I think, that they need to realize that they can do things, they can accomplish great things. No question, by sheer hard work and with the right people backing you, you can achieve a great deal. But you've got to accept the costs and don't complain. I think also, don't try and do it alone. And this applies absolutely to the genuine entrepreneur as well. Don't do it alone. You just simply can't. You will not survive. Either your business will die before you do, or you'll die before your business does. Make sure at the very least that your significant others are going with you. They're traveling with you. They're totally supportive of you. And any differences and difficulties you have amongst your significant others, like your family members for a start, but also your mentors, your coaches, your closest friends, any differences, you must resolve them. Don't just go on ahead and think that you know better. Build a team. Absolutely. We're very big on team in New Zealand, and it's a great thing. I think it's something that sets us apart from the rest of the world, especially the nations across the Pacific from us, who are very individualistic. I think our team focus is very important, and what makes us a very strong entrepreneurial nation. So build a team. And remember that money is just metal and paper. That's all it is. It's how we use it that matters. So don't chase the money, chase what it can do, and pursue the use of that money for good ends. I think that's also an important thing for an entrepreneur to remember. And this is not my original thought, but I heard this said a few times. Your wealth is what's left when you go into the ground. Or as one other person I know says, your wealth is what's left when all the money's gone. And I think it's a truism. I think it's something for us to really consider. Are we in the business of making money or creating wealth? And I prefer the latter.
Yeah, that's an amazing point to finish off our conversation, Ross. Actually, in our culture, they say when you die, try to get 4 friends of yours who can carry your body. So that's what in our culture people talk about when they talk about building a relationship, so that who is there when you die are the people whom you have built. So it's yeah, it's not the wealth what you have built.
That's right. Yeah. That's one reason why I had 3 children. So I've got 3 of those places filled already. I hope.
There are a lot of 4th person available for you, Ross.
Yeah.
Not to worry about that. Ross, it's fantastic talking to you and sharing some thoughts this morning. And
my pleasure.
Yeah, it's an amazing journey with you and knowing for past couple of years and now in a different journey. Thanks a lot. You have a wonderful day ahead and also happy Christmas to you.
And to you, Deepak. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot.